The stories you tell yourself are false beliefs. If you want to experience something different, you've got to tell yourself a different story. Join me and Tony Grebmeier for a powerful conversation that uncovers the truth about your stories. In this episode, you'll learn why you need to humble yourself to empower yourself, how to overcome your stories and create new experiences, why sometimes it's best to say yes to something after you experience a knee-jerk reaction that has you saying no, and an awesome Star Wars reference to complete this awesome conversation. While most well known for building a multi-million-dollar business with his childhood friends, it is Tony's mission in life to create a community where entrepreneurs know they can achieve anything they want despite their past. Tony has always known how to make money. He started his first business selling baseball cards out of his mom's house at the age of 14. By the time he was 18, he had held 16 jobs and was only fired once for giving his brother an ice cream cone. In 1996, Tony launched his first online business in Silicon Valley, web traffic and marketing company, which eventually turned into his first supplement company. In 2001, he went on to build his second supplement company, Ship Offers. 16 years later, Ship Offers is an 8-figure business that has become an Inc. 5000 company for the past 4 years in a row. Whether you're new to this podcast or you're a loyal podcast listener, please make sure you take a moment to download a few episodes, drop a rating and review on iTunes. Now it is time to talk about our stories with Tony Grebmeier.
Welcome to today's Thought Leader, where I'm challenging you to rise up, speak up, and create a movement. I'm your host, Ruby Fremont, and I'm here as a catalyst for you, the new generation of thought leaders. Join me every week as I dive into raw and real conversations that will help you amplify your presence, influence, and impact.
Hey, thought leaders. I am back with another very special guest. This man goes by the name of Tony Grebmeier, and we connected through a mutual contact. I'm now speaking at his event. I have his journal. I'm in his community, and I'm kind of obsessed with this guy's mission. So I'm excited to have him on the show today to share his wisdom with you, to share his presence with you. So Tony, welcome to today's Thought Leader.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited. And just think, a couple months ago, we didn't know each other. Now we're becoming best friends. See, I like how life works.
Me too. BFFs, right? BFFs forever. So I feel like that was a very great 12-year-old.
I was texting you back to high school, maybe freshman year, right? In the end of my yearbook, BFF. All right.
BFF. But then there were the special friends that would be BFF forever.
Oh,
that was different.
I didn't have very many of those.
Oh, okay. Well, we can be BFF forever. Right. How's that?
Sounds good. I like it. And I'm excited.
Cool. So before I hit record, I asked Tony, what is something that you're feeling super passionate about right now, super fired up about? And you started to tell me something, and I told you to zip it and save it for the podcast because it was just that good. So, Tony, storytelling, the stories we tell ourselves. These stories that we tell ourselves.
Yeah, it's the tapes that keep playing, the ones that, make statements like, fuck, I'm not good enough. No one will love me. No one will buy my stuff. No one will attend my events. No one will read my journal. No one will listen to my podcast. It's crazy how those stories take control over where we're currently at. And they're literally false beliefs. And I'm just here to help people smash those things and to really change the old tapes that play with new mixes that are more encouraging and powerful, the ones that tell you you got this and you need support and let's build community around you and get you going. So it's crazy because it's really, really easy for me to be that kid on the playground in 6th grade where people are screaming and yelling at me, calling me names, saying I'll never amount to anything, to where I stand to say, today I've come so far and everybody has that opportunity.
Yeah. And everybody has that opportunity. And yet when you're in it, like when you're in the thick of it, it's really tough to connect to what that opportunity is. And I don't know about you, because we have pretty similar paths. But
you were awesome in your past, right?
Right. We were both awesome. I mean, we both have a history of addiction. And during those years for me, yes, I was definitely telling myself a lot of stories and I was believing them and I didn't see any opportunity. Like I didn't see another way. And I find that even as I'm out of that space, out of those really dark times, I still come face to face with these stories that I tell myself. They're different stories now. They're edited versions. They're different mixtapes, but I still find myself telling these stories to myself, as well as finding myself in situations where sometimes I'll say to myself, wow, I don't see another way. And it's not until like I create a different way to get there. And I share this because I think it's really important for people to understand that it doesn't matter where we're at in our journey. I feel like we still come face to face with our stories. And I don't know, have you experienced that?
Yeah, very much. I mean, a way that I illustrate this a little in my words is, imagine you're in the middle of a forest and there's nothing but trees and you have no direction. Your compass doesn't work. You're kind of stuck and you're like, I just need help. And imagine a video game and a big crane comes down and just picks you up and just says, look, a few more steps, that direction, you're going to be okay. But it's all the other directions that you're uncertain of. Today, I have the same thing that I had when I was a little kid, the ability to raise my hand and ask for help. Those are hard things for me to say, even being an entrepreneur who runs a couple companies and loves life. I still don't think people want to help me. I still think that no one can do it better than me. It is what it is. I'll find a way or there won't be a way. And I have that problem that I have to rely. Luckily today I've got 5 coaches and mentors in other areas of my life that help me through all of those stories that I keep saying. They're like, hey, those are old tapes. Push play and record and let's record new ones. The other interesting piece that you bring up is, our paths and our backstory have helped me to understand that I had to go through all that to get to this point with you today. All of that stuff, as much as it felt good at times and hurtful at times and really weird at times, it was so necessary for the person that I've chosen to be today. My past does not equal my future. I'm not heading in that direction. And I've said what I wanted to do was go out and be the change. I love Gandhi's mantra. Some people think it's woo-woo. I'm like, it works for me, which tells me that it's not up to Ruby to change or my wife to change or my business partner to change, that it's really holding up a mirror for me to see my reflection and say, Tony, it's your opportunity and obligation in this very moment to be your best self. And if you need help doing that, please raise your hand because there are people willing to help you. You are not alone in your journey.
Yeah. I love how you phrase that as a kid, we could raise our hands and ask for help, and we can still do that as adults, because I think that as adults, especially people, my listeners, people who are striving entrepreneurs, leaders in their own way, striving to become experts in their industries, be seen as thought leaders, quite often they're the ones who forget to raise their hand, or they dismiss their ability to do so because they don't want to be seen as less than, or they don't want to be perceived in a different way. When in reality, I mean, I was one of those people. Let me just be super honest.
We're going to be real right now with you, and I'm going to be really honest.
I'm being really honest. I was one of those people. And last year, 2018 was a year of me practicing to lean in and ask for help. And my only goal was to ask for help as much as possible. Don't get caught up in people who say no or people who aren't there, but focus on the ones who are there. Because I had to create a new paradigm for myself. I had to create a new story, one where I could tell myself I am supported. And again, this is like an example of stories, because one of my stories was I am not supported. And I think a lot of our listeners and a lot of people watching this can relate to that. Like, I am not supported. Look at all these stories that prove that I'm not supported.
Yeah. Unfortunately, when you're an entrepreneur or a business owner, or you're running your thing and you try to go home and have a normal conversation with your significant other, partner, friend, whatever, and they're not in your line of work, it is a very odd conversation, because they may nod their head like, I get you. But in reality, they have no fucking clue what you're talking about. And so I stopped sharing. And then what I realized is I bottle all that stuff up instead of create community and transparency and authenticity around me with the right people. And so when I was a child, I did this. And when I went off to Young Life Camp, I did this. And I even did this in my 20s and my 30s, is you put yourself on a piece of paper in the very middle and you draw spider legs. and you draw the different communities and the people you associate with, and then you try to draw lines to see which ones connect. And you realize that you've created all of these communities, but not everybody connects with one another.
Right.
And so I've done a really, really good job. It's been my life's work, is to build community and connection with everybody that I meet. It doesn't mean that my friends have to become fast friends. I just know that I'm walking this walk with you. I'm not ahead of you, below you, or I'm just right next to you. We're just taking our steps. We're walking through life on our journey, trying to figure this thing out. No one handed me the magic compass and said, go this direction. It'll always be good. And I've just tried my best to figure it out that when I was a little kid, I used to raise my hand to go to the bathroom. I don't have to do that today, but I do need to empower myself to say, hey, you know what? I don't know the answer. I spent a lifetime trying to look good to avoid looking bad. Today, I know what's better for me, which is to say, hey, I'll humble myself to say, hey, Ruby, I'm stuck here. And, normally it's not easy for me to do this, but I'm doing this because part of it is an empowerment tool for me to empower myself to say, hey, you know what? I got this. And we're going to figure this shit out together. And then you can say, hey, you know what? I don't know the answer, but I know someone who does. And together we can get you through that situation, that problem. And I have found that has been the greatest advice that I'd ever swallowed was the one that I give the most to others. I started using it myself.
Isn't it funny how usually the advice that we love to give to others can quite often be the advice that's really hard for us to play out in our own lives?
The hardest advice I've ever taken is the advice I give.
Right. Yeah. And that, but that's what creates the congruency, right? I've just started to get to know you. And one thing that's been super clear is how congruent you are. You don't just talk the talk, you are living it, you are breathing it. This is you. And what's even more obvious is how connected this is to your story and your why. Because you're creating this incredible community around your work. You're creating a space for connection to take place. You're creating a space for people like me and other entrepreneurs and leaders to come together and talk about our stories, open up, share in a way that where we don't feel judged or we don't feel like we have to put a mask on. And that's really, it's rare. I'll say that it's rare that I see people do this in an effective way, and you're doing it in an effective way because you're being it.
Thank you. I appreciate those kind words. Yeah. The journey to where I'm at today has not been a smooth one. The entrepreneurship is not a straight line. It's squiggly. No. It looks like a Bob Ross picture, 1 minute it's here, 1 minute there. But at the end, it all comes through to be a masterpiece. And that's what I realize I'm painting with today. A brush and some dots, and I'm just trying to figure the connection out, right? And everything gets kind of put together, and you don't know why you're adding yellow at the moment you're adding yellow, or why you're putting a tree where you're not supposed to, but it all blends together. And your job is every single day, at least I know for me, is pick up my paintbrush, pick up some paint, and go create the masterpiece that I want my life to be today. Live your legacy, live your best life now. Don't wait for somebody to come and do it for you. It's not happening. No one's coming to save you. So why don't you save yourself and you save yourself from a lot of headaches and lonely nights by speaking what you want and then doing everything you possibly can to help others get it. And by helping everybody else, you'll get it yourself.
It's really powerful. And when I serve, I always find that I learn something or I gain something through service. And quite often on the days where I feel super shitty, if I serve one person that day, I can alleviate so much of the mental anguish or whatever it is that I'm going through because I'm in a place of service. But what you were saying about, us designing our lives and creating what we want, so many people say this, and yet not enough people are doing it. And I believe it's because there's a disconnect in the how. But how do I make this happen? And that disconnect is because of the stories that we're carrying. The disconnect comes from these beliefs that we're carrying in our minds. I'm not enough, or I don't know enough, or I'm not an expert, or I don't have this, that, and that thing. And we replay these stories over and over again. And that's what keeps people from actually moving forward with their dreams, with their vision, with their purpose, with whatever it is. Or maybe they're in their purpose, maybe they're doing it, but they're not doing it in a big way because of these stories. So what do you tell those people? How do they actually get past that?
Whew. So I work a 12-step program, talk a little bit about it, and they have something called the how, honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. And I have to remind myself at all times, am I being honest with myself? And first myself, then with others. And I'm being open-minded to what I talk about this in my journal. I took the last two and used them in my journal in such a way, is being open-minded to what I'm feeling and what other people are feeling as well. And then the willingness to do something about it, because I believe that's really what I have to get to. I have to be willing today. This is my third podcast today that I've been on. I saw your name and I was like, fuck yeah, this is awesome. I'm super excited. Why does it have to be at the end of my day? Why can't it be in the beginning of my day? Because it's just rocking. And what I realized is that I just said yes. And you were talking about no just a minute ago. No to me does not mean no. It means it's on. I flip it around. I'm like, it's on. When I hear a no, I'm like, fine. I got stuff to work on. I'm coming back. This person either will regret that they didn't say yes. They will be like, oh my gosh, I wish I could have you on my show now. Blah, 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 blah. It's like all this. I just flip it around in my head. I'm like, it's on. Let's go. Let's go get what it is that I want to happen now. I'm such an impatient person. I am so impatient. I am like a kid in a candy store when my mom says, you can't get the sucker. I'm literally kicking and screaming at 4 years old or 3 years old or 2 going, I want a sucker. No, you can't have it. I'm like, today I'm like, okay, fine. I'll figure out how to get my own sucker then. And I just realized what I want. And, I'm trying to create a passionate life right now. My wife and I are about to be empty nesters here in a few months. And, 20 years of marriage, we're staring at each other going, wow, like we got to actually really be, because got pregnant early, like 3 months into everything, we go, shoot, let's go get married, and got married and had a kid. And literally just our kids are now going off to college. And my wife and I are going, all right, now what? And we are living what you're talking. We have designed for the last 5 or 6 years of our life to go live half of our life in Europe. And so we are working every single moment when we talk to schedule and plan and dream and talk and like, am I doing stuff that's moving us closer to our dream or further from our dream? And so I'm learning to say no, not it's on, no to the things that take me away from my dream. So you're in alignment with my soul's purpose. You're in alignment with helping me to go live out my dream. So I say yes to these things. The things that don't line up, the things that are like just quick wins, I don't take quick wins. I do everything because of the master plan, which is alignment with the right people. I say yes to a lot of people, but I say no to a lot more. And by doing so, my wife and I now get to go live out our dreams, and we travel and spend so much quality time. She looks at me and I'm like, I know, let's go for a walk, or hey, let's go cook dinner together. And, we're just trying new things that I forgot how to do because I never did them as a kid. And now I'm like, my first response still is no. My first response is still no. My first response is selfish. Right. My second response is, okay, sure, I'll do that. And my wife is still helping me to realize there's so many layers to Tony, and the surface layers that people see are still the heart and core of who he is. It's just at the end of the day, I'm exhausted by the time I get home, and I have to remember and remind myself, my wife has not had me all day. She's only gotten to see me at the end of my day when I'm tired. So I need to flip the script and be my best when I get home as well.
It's so key that we notice these things about us. Like when we have that knee-jerk reaction where we say no to things, when we have the autopilot reaction of like when our story comes up or our pattern of who we're used to being comes up and shows up, and then we have to have that awareness to recognize, oh, this is actually that old identity, or this is actually that former self that believes a story, and I'm different. Like the me today is different, so I'm going to say yes to this. Or the me today is different, and I'm going to go home and put my best foot forward. The me today is different. I'm going to take this opportunity and fucking crush it. And I find myself doing this every day. Like I still do this every single day. I'll be faced with something, and the knee-jerk reaction will be the former self reacting to what's happening, the inner child reacting to what's happening. And then I have to say, okay, what would the leader do? What would the leader in me do? What would the Ruby who's created something out of her fucked up path, what would she do? And it's just that flipping that switch in those moments to then create the new story that we can we have to work to prove ourselves. You know, like I think
I so love that. I think I even shared with you Buckminster Fuller's quote, you know, like you to change an existing reality, right? You got to build a new model that makes the old model obsolete. Yes. The old model got you here, but it won't take you to where you want to go because it just doesn't have enough. So it tells me everything I need. I need to become more. I need to become more. Not that I'm less than right now. Just like if I want to build a 9-figure business, I need to be talking to people who build a 9-figure business or have done it, right? When I was literally trying to build a 6 to a 7 and a 7 to an 8, I was talking to the next level of people. And also here's something that I learned from one of my coaches. He says, you know, Tony, the people you surround yourself with will only take you so far. They can only take you so far. So it tells me that everything around me, for it to become more, I need to become more. And it doesn't mean that I have to get rid of my friends. Your friends are your friends. But there's levels of depth of how far somebody can help you. And I just am mindful of what I know today to be true is that if I need it, I got to roll the decks today that I didn't have 10 years ago. People who are saying, hey, I'll fly on a plane. I'll be there tomorrow. Let's go figure this thing out together. And that was something in my entrepreneurship, you know, and just kind of my journey of life that I've really paid close attention to are the people who say, hey, I'll be there. I'll help you. Because in return, that knows to me, I remind myself, shoot, I need to do the same because they would do it for me. And it's just the right thing to do.
Yeah. But that again, like that's you consciously reminding yourself to do that. Otherwise it's really easy to go back into autopilot and say, oh, let me just focus on all these dipwits who said no. Like, let me just focus on all these assholes who say no. Is dipwit's a word? Did I just make up a word?
You made 2 words up. But when you said you come home and you're still having these conversations, I would like to just ask you a couple questions around that.
Yeah.
So you're
I'm always home, by the way.
Must be nice.
I'm literally wearing pajama bottoms.
You're at home and you're 100% there, right? And you're still beating yourself up over something that maybe went wrong or didn't go according to the Ruby plan. What are some of the things that you do to get yourself back on track? What are some of the little things that you do that help you to kind of say, hey, you know what? I can do this. These are the things I need to do first that'll help me get back onto my path.
Yeah, for me, number one is acknowledge what I'm saying to myself. I think it's really easy to hear what we're saying, but not really acknowledge what we're saying. So to really acknowledge what is being said in my mind, like what am I telling myself right now? And then to identify what would I rather be telling myself? And then how do I get there my fail-safe way is always action. Like what is something that I can do? And even when I'm the most overwhelmed and when we're overwhelmed, it's a heavy energetic emotion. We end up freezing, like we don't do anything. So it's really important to get into motion. For me, I won't take like the biggest thing that's going to take me the furthest. I'll take like the smallest piece of action that's going to lead me towards where I want to be and then do that thing. And I might be kicking and screaming while I'm doing it. But once it's done, I'm like, oh, like, okay, here's that Ruby again. Cool. Now I can keep going. But it's always like acknowledging what I'm saying, identifying what I'd rather be saying, and then taking some piece of action, anything that's going to just lead me in the direction that I want to go in.
When you get to be on stage, following one of my best friends, Sean Stevenson, he has a piece of advice that I use and I keep in my back pocket. He has a when life works list and a when life sucks list. And he has like 14 things down on his when life works list, and you know what's on your when life sucks list. And his goal every single day is to get to 3 to 4 things on his when life works list. Just do those 3 to 4 things every day. And you know when you're doing those things, your life just works. It just, all the stuff just gets better. Exercise, eat right, have phone calls with good friends, like make time for yourself, put on the oxygen mask, read a book, listen to a podcast, call Ruby. Like do something, right? That's going to put you in the best mode possible, which is the mode of like, man, just free-spirited love and happiness. And I know what I'm doing right. I'm sitting by my wife's side and we're walking, talking, we're hanging out, we're doing something that I don't want to fricking do, like put a puzzle together. I know my life is right because I'm sitting by my love, and that's what is right for me in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Those lists, that's so powerful. It's, it's one of the reasons why I have daily rituals every day is to make sure that no matter what, I'm starting my day off on the right foot. And for example, this morning, my husband slept in. He didn't want to go to the gym. He's been working his ass off. And it was so easy for me to be like, yeah, I'm going to stay in bed. I'm going to cuddle and trying to make that excuse like, oh, this is just like cuddle time. And I think I gave myself 5 minutes. And then I was like, nope, I'm going to the gym because I know
he's not waking up. I'm going to the gym.
Yeah. I was like, I know that when I go to the gym, when I move my body, when I stick to my rituals, I feel really fucking good that day. And this is what the new version of myself does. The old version of myself will feed myself excuses, but this new version of myself, this new story that I tell myself is that I am committed and I am disciplined and I create this foundation for myself each and every single day.
I like that. And I love Mel Robbins has the 5-second rule. Like I give myself 5 seconds, like do that before your brain takes you out. It's really easy to get comfortable in bed. You've been there for 8 or 9 hours. I mean, what's a couple more minutes, right? Mm-hmm. And there's no good at hitting snooze. Phaedra Squillian just, talks about hitting snooze. It's kind of like the worst thing. You're snoozing your life, your dreams. You're saying, hey, screw it. I'll do it later. Just go do it now. And I'm so proud of you, even in the moment of self-chatter and the noise that plays, that you're like, nope, I'm going to the gym. And you feel so much better leaving the gym than you did going to the gym. I don't think anybody really loves going to the gym. Like really, who wants to be tortured for an hour? But I think everybody feels so much better afterwards, and you burn so many more calories, your endorphins, you feel better as a human. You're just like, all right, this is great. And then all day your muscles are like trying to fix themselves. And you're like, I can't barely lift my pencil, but you feel better. You just feel better.
Yeah. And that goes with any story that we're rewriting, like any new pattern that we're creating in our life, the good habits, as opposed to the old negative, bad habits. It goes with all of that because we may go into it kicking and screaming. We may go into it with a case of the I don't want us. I literally like visualize my inner child coming out. I don't want to do this. But then you do it. Right? And you do it kicking and screaming, but then you feel so much better because you've just proved to yourself that you have another story and that you're capable of writing it. Like you just wrote that new story and you have that power. And it doesn't matter how far along you are in your journey. It doesn't matter how far you rise. Like we're always going to have these stories because we're constantly growing and we're constantly evolving and we're constantly learning. So when we gain the power, when we recognize our power to create new stories, we recognize our power to like actually design a life, both business and personal, an environment. We understand that we have the power to create all of this.
I'm sitting here listening to you and I'm reminding myself of when I was first into recovery and I had people in my life saying, hey, like, yeah, good job. You got sober, clean, wait a couple years and your life will be so much better and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, fuck, dude, do you know what I've gone through just to get to this moment, this point right now? And to acknowledge anybody listening right now, just starting out as an entrepreneur, maybe just getting out of a relationship and saying yes to yourself and finally owning yourself and saying, hey, you know what? I'm not going to allow this to happen anymore. And you're ready to make a change. Just remember in that moment of that is you took ownership and it's not what everybody else says. It's how you feel. And you got to share those feelings and talk to people who get you and understand. And so when Ruby was sharing kind of our paths and our like things that we've gone through, the things that keep reminding me of where I'm at today in my path and my journey is that you got to surround yourself. You got to put people in your life that speak truth to you. And you got to have people who will call. One of my old partners called a spade. And I'm like, that's right. You just tell it what it is and you say it out loud. And like, I don't have all the answers. I'm figuring this thing out just like everybody else. Mm-hmm. But it's so powerful in the moment when you wake up, in the moment you wake up in the morning. This is a question that I ask a lot of my guests and listeners is I'll say, what's the first thing you thought of this morning when you woke up? What's the very first thing? Was it your iPhone? Was it Facebook? Was it social media? Was it, I gotta go to the bathroom? What was it? So I'm going to ask you, what was the first thing you thought of this morning when you woke up?
Am I going to the gym?
Cool. And then it took you 5 minutes to finally decide that you're going to go to the gym. And that's the thing that you need to be really aware of, because that's the thing that takes you out of this this game called life. It can take you out. And Wayne Dyer talks about it in a lot of his work is like in the morning, he acknowledges the new day. He just says, thank you, thank you, thank you. And from there, kind of, he's not even thinking about himself yet. He's giving gratitude. And for me, if I can do that, I'm out of my head and into somebody else's heart. I'm in a much better place. My head is a old remix tape. It's got, New Edition one moment, it's got Led Zeppelin the next, and Men at Work, and then it's got Paula Abdul, and next thing I know, I'm listening to crap that I don't want to. And I have to say, hey, you know what? It's like Spotify. I can go in and play a new song. I can rewrite the songs that are playing, and it took you 5 minutes, but shit, at least you did it. Who cares how long it took, really? I'm proud of you for even doing it, because if the first thing you thought of and then your head said, oh, stay in bed, stay in bed. And you're like, no, and you fought it. That's what we have to do every day. Is we have to fight the best fight possible.
Amen. Yes. Tony, we are nearing the end of this recording. Time flies.
There is no time like the present. More questions, please.
So FYI, I just learned that Tony does voices.
Of course you are. Yes. Ruby, please tell me more.
Funny enough, Kevin and I were just looking at tickets for Star Wars at Disneyland.
I'm jealous. I'm very jealous. And there's a new Star Wars movie coming out, and I'm actually very happy that it's coming to an end, because they have, in my opinion, ruined some of the best movies possible. The only two I like, and then I like the third one, is I liked New Hope. I loved Empire Strikes Back. And that goes something, circle back really quick. And then I loved Rogue One. Those are like my three favorite Star Wars movies, like probably in the last 40 years. In Empire Strikes Back, Luke is working with Yoda, and Yoda, feels something, and Luke senses it, and then he decides that he's going to go into kind of a tunnel, and he tries to put his utility belt around, and Yoda says, you don't need it. You've got everything that you need. And he's like, no, I need my lightsaber and everything. And he goes and he comes face to face with this vision of Darth Vader, and he fights and he cuts off Darth Vader's head. Sorry to ruin this movie. It's only been out for 40 years, but he sees himself.
Yeah.
And I have to remind myself that I see myself in so many things that I've accomplished today, but I see myself, I didn't have a great relationship growing up with my dad. And then as my dad has passed, and my mom was my first coach, my first mentor, I talk to my mom all the time. I realized that I have so much of what I am today is from my parents and their belief systems and their upbringing and their thoughts. And they put that and instilled it. And I lived so much of my life with their beliefs that it took me getting to the point where I needed to recreate those beliefs with mine. And that's why I wanted to come on your show today. I love what you're doing. I love the impact you're leaving. We've only known each other for a short period of time, but I love your spirit. And I think your heart is true. I think what you're figuring it out is it's all a journey, and we're going to do this together, right? And there's no right or wrong. There just is what it is, and you're doing it. And when you asked me, I was completely floored and honored and said thank you. And like I said, I wish it was early this morning, but it is when it is. And I just want to say thank you for giving me this opportunity to just be on your show.
Thank you so much, Tony, for coming, for saying yes to this show, for bringing your wisdom, and for bringing your voices, bringing Yoda.
Yeah, I love it. I appreciate it. Yeah. My wife hates it when I do voices, but yes, I do them all the time. And I have probably 100, because I came from radio, and I had to amuse myself at 2:00 in the morning when I worked the graveyard shift.
Yeah, I bet.
All good.
So I am going to include all of the links in the show notes, including a link to join Tony and I at Ecom and Influence in Denver, August 11th to the 13th. And as a special gift from me, you're going to get $150 off your ticket.
No, stop.
No.
You can get $400 off. We turn those 150s into 400s.
$400 off your ticket. $400 off your ticket at the checkout. The link is going to be in the bio. Be there. It's going to be an incredible event with incredible speakers. Tony, thank you again for just sharing your presence. And I'm so excited to just continue nurturing this friendship. And maybe you and your wife could come to LA and we can just double date it up to Star Wars land.
The force is strong. I like that. I can definitely do that one. Yes.
Awesome. To our listeners, thank you so much for joining Tony and I on today's Thought Leader, where we are challenging you to rise up, speak up, and create a movement. If you have any questions, comments, or stories to share, with myself or with Tony, please reach out to us on social media. The links are in the bio. Please don't forget to rate and subscribe and leave a review. And then I will see you back here on Thursday for a brand new episode of Today's Thought Leader.